Greetings, jelly spoons, and welcome back to the third and final, I expect, hopefully, maybe, possibly, part of this improvised story time, Garnet and the Goth Boy. Last time, the Goth Boy finally got a name. His name is Aris, and he has a fancy name that he has long since discarded, and I don't think that name's gonna come up in this story. Who knows? I've got no idea where it's going. As ever, this is a completely improvised video, partly because I have just come back from MCM London, and I still have not unpacked, and there's a big pile of, well, Hermes and Edward Scissorhands just over there waiting for me to sort them out. So I don't have the time to do a really big complicated video that involves a lot of different things right now, so I'm going to do the third part of this because you guys were asking me for the third part, and well, I've got new OCs to do stories about soon, so we're going to wrap this one up today. So improvised story time, the final part of Garnet and the Goth Boy. It really should be Goth Boy and Garnet because he is the main character, but well, Garnet's hot, so Garnet gets to go first. So, with absolutely no idea where this story is going to go, but knowing I have to wrap it up and I've only got about 40 minutes of filming time left on my camera, let's get into it. I would like to point out at this stage that you guys voted for this. You asked for dark and you guys asked for romance. So, well, I've given you the romance. I guess it's time for a really horrible dark ending. Let's do it. Garnet blinks several times, still half leaning on Aris, healed up but feeling the bruising and definitely sore. Tottering just a little bit like they never have done before in their fantastically high heels. Say what now? But before anyone else can say anything at all, as Aris turns to look at Garnet, the creature snaps its smoky fingers and the whole world goes black. Suddenly the air is pushed through their lungs, and for a while the only sound that they can hear is the rushing of wind and shadow and the ah coming from both Garnet and Goth Boy Aris's lungs as they are dragged along somehow through this darkness. It's like a dark wind tunnel void. Descriptive. This goes on, and that weird screaming silence for a minute. Then 2, then 3, and just as it's coming up to 4, the world comes right again. And slam! Their feet touch down on ground that isn't familiar. It's slightly spongy under their feet. It's like rock, but softer. They both land, falling forwards, lurching. Aris instinctively rolling onto his back to catch at Garnet as they fall too. Garnet does manage to laugh at this, despite the situation that they're in, and does sort of push up on their elbows and give Aris a quick little wink as they get up and manage to dust themselves off, standing to look around at the world they now find themselves in. The dark, shadowy creature is nowhere to be seen. It seems to have dissipated with the darkness itself. They can't even see those red, beady eyes. Although Aris, of course, can. He can see the red eyes of Garnet. In fact, red is a strong colour here. The sky is not blue, the sky is red. Almost exactly the same shade of red. There's a hint of what could be a sun or maybe a star or two. It's way, way off in the distance, and it's so small but so bright. As they turn and stare at it, they have to close their eyes partially and turn away. Whatever it is, sun, star, moon, up in the sky, it shines down in a bathing red light. Everything, as far as they can see, is red and shadow and mist. The dry grass, trickling streams off in the distance, everything is this rich maroon red. Almost like the landscape is a scab, unhealed, picked, bloodied from centuries of war and battle and defeat. As they look around, they realise they are on a sort of mountain path. They've landed maybe halfway up. The rocks underfoot are slightly springy, and as they look closer, there's a misty quality to them. It hangs in the air, almost like what they're looking at is not quite real, almost as if the entire place is made of literal shadow. As they take their first few tentative steps around, trying to get their bearings, Aris is reminded of that dream memory he just vacated, and he tells Garnet about it as they decide which way to go now. Initially, they're looking down, but they can't see a path that will take them off this mountain, so looking upwards, they see cliff and stone and wall, but there is a slight incline and a pebbled path that leads up and up around the corner. Garnet shrugs in an attempt at their usual cheerful way, though winces at the end because their stitches are still raw. Upwards it is then? Aris and Garnet then start to climb. Aris wishes to go in front, but seeing how unsteady Garnet can be, decides to strategically place Garnet just in front of him, where he can catch them should they tip in any direction, especially off the side of the mountain. As they climb, Aris starts to wonder, should he mention the eyes? Should he tell Garnet what he's seen? He wonders if it would seem accusatory. He starts to panic. Memories flash into his head of his family and arguments and raised shouting voices, of Garnet turning and then falling off the side of this mountain, of losing everything over and over again. He has almost made up his mind to stay quiet, when it's Garnet who brings the subject up first. Not to sound like I'm making everything about me or anything, but, kind of strange how we both have the same eyes, right? Aris could not have anticipated the wave of gratitude he felt towards Garnet in that moment. Garnet had seen, Garnet knew, Garnet understood, and more to the point, Garnet knew that he was desperate to talk about it, and so had taken the reins, and, as usual, led him. Yes, strange. I, could not help but notice. And I'm guessing the big crazy smoke demon asked too, and that's why we are here? I think so, yes. Well, good to know we're on the same page, and that answers absolutely no questions whatsoever. Terrific. Garnet. Aris decides he has to ask. Why do I get the feeling the next question out of your mouth is going to be very personal? Well, you never really, said much, about where I'm from, who I really am, the fact that I could be in some strange way related to a big shadowy demony thing, in a way, I suppose. Aris is very glad at this moment that Garnet is walking in front of him. I suppose, yes. Sorry to disappoint then, darling, but, no, I have never been here before, nor do I recognize it, and no, while I have encountered many, many strange bedfellows in my time, never have I encountered a big, shadowy demon creature before. Your guess is absolutely as good as mine at this point. You don't think any differently of me, do you? And then Garnet has turned around. And then they are inches from each other, and Aris is staring into those dark red eyes, and he just can't look away. But what he can do is answer the question. It's an immediate no. I can never think anything but highly of you. I mean, you're you. A cute moment of silence pauses between them. Perhaps this is the start of what could be a blossoming romance. But unfortunately, we don't have time for that. The mountain begins to rumble, their feet sliding, already on the slightly squishy rock that is sort of shadow and sort of not really there, and they grip onto each other as the mountain shudders and shakes and rights itself. And then they carry on walking. Aris pushing Garnet now, holding onto their shoulders so neither of them drop, and eventually they come out right at the summit, and they can see over a vast landscape of red and shadow. There's nothing at the top of the mountain, and for a little while they both feel somewhat deflated. They couldn't have described it if you'd asked them, or drawn it if you'd put pen to paper, but they were expecting something. Some answer, some reason, something. But there was nothing, just more rock that they half step through in shadow. And so they do the only thing they can think of. They stand there. They look around, staring into the vast red landscape. And silently they both think the same question. What now? Aris asks if Garnet feels any different. Garnet pauses for a minute, and then says, surprisingly, actually, I feel rather good. Better than before. Certainly better than when I was thrown through that window, of course. But, yes, everything feels remarkably good. As they speak, Garnet begins to pull at the bandages. No! Aris rushes forward, but it's too late. The bandages have come off. And then they both see why Garnet's feeling so good, so well, so better. Because the scarring has gone. There's only now the faintest of white lines, as though the incident when they were thrown through the window had happened many, many years ago. Aris blinks. I do not understand. Normally, I would say new things are an exciting adventure and must always be tried at least twice. And don't get me wrong, I'm delighted nothing is, well, sore anymore, but this is odd, right? Yes. My dealings with magic are not extensive. And nor are mine. All right then. Another few moments roll by. Perhaps it was an hour. Perhaps it was mere seconds. It all just rolled into one as the smoke and the wind and the red just encompassed them for several long moments. They stood in silence, Aris still staring at the fully healed scars across Garnet's chest, Garnet blinking and looking around as though hoping an answer will fall miraculously into their lap. And then, somehow, it does. An answer comes fluttering towards them on the breeze. It catches them about the face, nearly pulling them off balance. Such a small thing, such a little thing. But when Garnet reaches up and catches it in their hand, suddenly everything makes sense. I thought of this sentence before I even knew what they'd caught in their hand. Come on, improvised storyteller, what's Garnet caught? It's a wisp of shadow, exactly like that which the demonic creature was made of. But this wisp of shadow is red. The same shade of red as the demon's eyes, the same shade of red as Garnet's eyes. And Garnet catches it, holds it tight in their hand. It flutters in the breeze, but as they open their palm, it doesn't strain to get away. It loops and swirls around their fingers, and as they pick up their other hand, it releases and catches, passing between the two of them like they're attached on magnets. Aris leans forward to look, and as he raises his hands, the shadow doesn't bend and swirl around him in the same way, but it does loop carefully around his third finger and then back again. It seems intent on staying with Garnet. What is it, do you think? Aris has no answers, but it seems Garnet does. A ripple of understanding, a voice somewhere in the back of their mind is telling them this truth, this thing that, how could they know? But somehow they do. It's an instinct rather than a thought. It's not fully formed as words, it's just a whisper rippling past their ears, almost as if their horns are carrying the echo of it. And as Aris blinks, looking up into the red eyes, the colour of this scrap of shadow, the colour of this world's sky, the colour of this world's shadows, Garnet says the truth that has come to them like a flash of lightning. I think it's a soul. I think it's mine. Aris tilts his head, looking inquisitively from the strands of red shadow looping around Garnet's fingers, and then up into Garnet's beautiful face. And he can't help but ask, should that not be, inside of you? Garnet loops the shadow around one finger, spinning it idly as they scratch their horn. I always assumed as much, but something is telling me I was mistaken. How do you suppose we get it in? The first thing Aris can think of to say is, eat it? They both stare at each other for a second, and then they start to laugh. It echoes down their spines, and they both have to hold onto each other's shoulders as they just shake and laugh and giggle, and then sputter up into laughter again as the sheer ludicrousy of this idea settles upon them. But even as the laughter fades, it seems to be one of the better ideas they've got. I mean, I'm sure it'll regurgitate out somehow if I've done it wrong. Bottoms up? Aris snorts a bit of a laugh. Meanwhile, Garnet has gathered up the red, shadowy substance, slicked it into a ball, and then inhaled it. They stand there, waiting for something to happen. Something good, something bad, anywhere in between, they don't know. But the world is still quiet. Do you feel any different? Aris finally manages to ask. Garnet is staring off into the middle distance, directly at that star or sun or moon, the red of their eyes now blazing in the light of it. I do feel different. I feel better. I feel more myself than I've ever felt. Like I always knew that there was something missing, but never really gave it any thought. I mean, I did think. I thought you were what was missing. And you are, but this is a different kind of missing. This is me missing me. This is so many things. And memories and shapes and people and how did I ever leave this place? But why would I stay? It's just empty now. Sorry, this must all be rather confusing for you. I don't suppose you can imagine it. Imagine, if you will, that you just got told 20,000 stories all at once, and somehow your mind has managed to remember them all, and they're spinning and spinning around, and not quite a family. It was too desperate for that. I was let go. They made me let go. I had to forget and not know that I'd forgotten. Gosh, this is confusing. Aris is trying his very best to keep up here. He takes Garnet gently by the hand without quite realizing he's doing it. Instinctively, it's what he wants to do, the part of Garnet he wants to be holding on to. And Garnet slowly turns to face him. And Garnet's eyes are so much brighter. It's like they've inhaled the sun itself. Still that vibrant red, but so much more alive than they've ever been, glistening with sparks and stars. I think there's only 2 of us left now. I think we came from here. This used to be our home. Another world, another life, another civilization. There were, and Garnet's free hand points off into the distance, and as their hand dusts across the skyline, shadows and shapes erupt in red, bringing up visions as they describe. There was a citadel there, a clock tower. There were trees, forests, a river, a fountain there. No, not a fountain, it was a waterfall, and it rose up into the heavens. And there were hundreds of us. Mere hundreds, but enough. Enough for this little world. You see the edges of it. It is not vast, but it was ours. And now it's this. And they wave the hand again, and the shadowy visions disappear, and the world is back to its barren state. Aris is still just trying his best at this point, and he says, encouragingly, but trying to keep up, so the creature was right. You are really not of our world. You came from this place. But why would they send you away? Why would you not be allowed to remember? I don't understand. And then a wave of dark shadow creeps over both of them, and the 2 red eyes that match Garnet's come glinting into view. The shadowy shape shrinks down and slowly takes the shadowy form of the humanoid figure that it used to be, that Aris had seen in the memory and described to Garnet while they were walking. The creature can no longer take its original form. It is now destined to be the shadowy creature that it is, but it makes the attempt. The shape is there, some of the features swirled out and missing, but it's as similar to its original form as it can get. And it wants to be as close to its original form in this moment, as close as it can be to what it used to be, what it misses so much, while it fills them in on this part of the story. The shadowy creature tells them that there was no huge catastrophe, there was no war, it was just disease. Some unknown entity that trickled through from other dimensions, portals that were opened and closed, magic sparks scattered and left behind, and it wiped them out. Slowly at first, but then one by one became 2, became 10, and then hundreds were boiled down to just they 2. The shadowy creature and, it turns out, Garnet. And so, knowing this, the shadowy creature in its original form had made a bid to save both of them. They had used the last scraps of their magic to carve a hole through the portals of time and had carried Garnet as a young infant through with them. But their souls could not follow them out, and so each had been torn away from them, ripped apart and left scattered in the breeze of this desolate place where once their families had been. The shadowy creature from that moment had known that the 2 of them no longer bore souls, and it sought a way to restore them both to them. It took decades, but luckily they had decades, because they are not creatures of this world. They are creatures of another time, another place, and while they appear as tieflings or elves, they actually can live for centuries. And so the infant Garnet remained an innocent infant for many, many years, hidden away while the creature in its original form sought out some way of regaining their souls. And that is how it ended up going into a dark, dank dungeon in a mansion many, many years later. And that is why Garnet ended up all alone and lived the life that they lived. After the creature finishes telling this story, it looks directly to Garnet and says, "I must apologize. I could not find you. I assumed you were lost. With no soul, I thought you may just wither, but now I see you thrived." And so, over the next few years, Garnet, Aris, and the shadowy creature began to rebuild the Red World. They invited others from Aris's world and slowly began to build bridges between the 2 places. People were excited. Kingdoms wished to come and experience this new plane of existence they'd never even heard of before. And while it would never restore the race of beings, it did feel like a home after many, many years of buildings, of creation, of people emigrating across. And this, it turned out, was the biggest thing that any of them could have hoped for. And though it took years and years of building and trading and organizing and planning, they did manage to build something smaller but brand new, something they could share. Portals were built with the aid of sorcerers. They were kept open, a constant stream of bridges back and forth between the 2 worlds. And Aris and Garnet set up a little home for themselves there. They made a bar, the first bar, the only bar for a long time until more came and they had to build others. And they ran the bar together. And on that first night, the first opening night of this new bar that they built together, when everyone came and even the shadowy creature was there, the first night it was open to everyone and everything, and this new life was said to have begun properly. That night marked the first time Aris had performed since that tragedy struck and he lost everyone else in his band. The shadowy creature never could completely return to its natural form, though it did decide to take the shape as much as possible. The coins that were used to curse and to summon it were entrusted to Garnet and to Aris, who of course guarded them with their very lives. And that is the end of the story. What do you think they called the bar? Let me know in the comments down below. The next story I'm going to be bringing to you is the story of an original character, an OC that my Patreons have been voting on for some of the characteristics and their background. And what I'm going to be doing next is posting stories onto here, YouTube, and onto my TikTok. I'm going to make a cosplay of this character, and I'm going to start acting out and doing little skits and scenes for it. And then you guys in the comments are going to vote on what happens next. Very interactive storytelling, this. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. That's going to be coming in the next couple of months. Alright, let me know what you thought of this story. I did not see that coming. Did any of you? Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and let me know if you have any other ideas for stories and whatever else you'd like to hear from me. Have a good rest of your week. Goodbye.